big welcome to Swamini Supriyananda.
Do I get in the round?
No, we can do whatever you want, all the time you need, within 30 minutes.
Are you all comfortable if I start with a chant? Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Deva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Morning. Is it working? Yes. So if we look at any subject or any object, like a flower, there's so many ways in which we can look at a flower. There's the biology of it, the aromatherapy of it, the aesthetic value of it, poetic value of it. And that's just an object. And then we as sentient beings, there's so much more ways in which we can look at ourselves. There's so many facets to who we are. There's the physical aspect of us, and that's this flower. Just on that, there's Instagram pages of thousands. There's the emotional aspect of us, and what we've been talking about, connections. And even though it's career and work, we need human connections to be able to feel fulfilled in the work that we do, or to feel that it's meaningful and has a sense of purpose. And then there's the spiritual aspect of us, which maybe we're not quite as familiar with. Maybe it's not as popular or everyday. Or it's also important how we use the word. So the way in which we understand it, in the tradition that I have learned, all of us are seeking happiness. Every single one of us, no matter what it is we're doing. So if I sit down with any one of you and say, so what are you doing? And you'll say, studying or working, and why? Because you want to either make a difference in the world or just earn money, and then I'll ask you, why do you want that? And why do you want that? And why do you want that? Why do you want to go to the gym? Because I want to be healthy. Why? Because then I'll be happy. Why do you want a relationship? And basically every single thing we do is in this quest to be happy. Even sitting on your chair, if you switch from this to this, it's because you feel more comfortable, because that makes you more happy. There isn't a single thing we don't do without pursuing happiness. So how do we find it? Where do we find it? How are we going about finding it? Before I go into that, have we found it? Because we've been living this long, how could we not have been happy? Like, do we really need to find it? Haven't we all already have our relationships, have our career, have our houses, have our car, have our holidays? Has the search ended? Would I still be searching if I had it? We wouldn't, right? If I, where's my phone? Ah, search ended. Until I lose it again. We still searching. Haven't we experienced happiness? Why are we still searching? Why the next project? The next book, the next movie? It's because this happiness that we're seeking is not what we're experiencing. Firstly, the happiness we experience is dependent. Coffee. When will I be happy? When I get my coffee. As long as the coffee is there, I'm happy. Is this what we want? Do we want our happiness to be dependent on something? Okay, coffee is fine. A person. As long as this person's there, I'll be happy. As long as I'm in Hong Kong, I'll be happy. The happiness we experience tends to be dependent on an object, person, or situation. The second thing about the happiness we experience is it ends. But what we want is to be continuously happy. We don't want happiness to end. I don't know about you, but sometimes if it's a good movie, I'm annoyed that it ended. Then how much more when a relationship ends, or when career changes because COVID happened and now that industry is suffering, or whatever. So most things we experience are time bound. We ourselves are time bound. So if we ourselves are time bound, how are we going to find a happiness that never ends? And the last thing, well, there's many things, but for today, the happiness we experience seems to be a little bit contaminated sometimes. Not all the time, ever so often. And so in surveys, when we ask people what's the happiest moment in your life, I should ask. No, it'll take up too much time. Majority of people will say when their first child was born. That seems to be the most popular answer to the happiest moment in your life. Interestingly, marriage doesn't feature very high. Going back to connections, right? So in that moment of your child being born, which is most people's happiest moments in their life, are you scared? Probably. Because now I have this incredible responsibility of being a parent. And am I going to be a good one? Because, we complain so much about our parents. It's yes, this kid, and then they're going to complain about me at some point or the other. Or let's talk about the moment where we're getting married. Again, there's a little bit of fear. Is it going to work? Isn't it going to work? So, even though we have happiness, the search continues because we want happiness that's uncontaminated, that's never-ending, and not conditioned or dependent. And if every single one of us is searching for that exact same thing, it must be who we essentially are. Because all things in nature go back to their natural state. I've used this example before, and it's not a perfect example, but water will generally be cool. We warm it up, we take it off the gas, and immediately it starts to cool. That's its nature. You'll see with creatures also, animals in the kingdom, take them out of what their nature is, and they slowly try to get back to their nature. And so scriptures tell us, if this is what every single one of us is trying to do, then our spirit is of the nature of this happiness. So why aren't we experiencing it? There's a lovely story. Somebody was walking along the road at night and saw an elderly woman looking on the floor. She's elderly, probably can't see very well. He was a young gentleman. He thought, let me be helpful. Good deed of the day. What are you looking for? And she said, my needle. So now the two of them are standing under the streetlight, looking at the floor. Third man came along. What are you looking for? A needle. She dropped it. So now three of them standing on the light, looking at the floor. If three of us do this, if three of us come and look down at the floor, within no time, all of us will be looking down at the floor because we feel, oh, what are they looking at? Very soon there was about 25 people around the streetlight looking at the floor. The 26th person came along, tapped someone and said, what are you looking for? And he said, I don't know. We're just looking at the floor. There must be something there. I'm going to look at the floor. Taps the next person. What are you looking for? Don't know. Until they get to the original man who is doing his good deed for the day. What are you looking for? Well, we're looking for the needle. This very wise young man, looked at the older lady and said, oh, you lost your needle? Where did you lose it? And she said, inside. I was sewing and I dropped my needle. Why are you looking out here? Because there's light. There's no light inside. I get you to close your eyes. Is there light? Get you to open your eyes. There's so many faces to see, the smell of coffee, what people are wearing, listen to snippets of conversation. So who are we? Well, essentially we're spirits, tucked away inside this body. And this body has these senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch, which are so fascinating. They give us so much information about the world outside. They like sparkle. And don't we love bling? Like look around Hong Kong, we love bling. So where are we looking? Outside. Where's my happiness? Where am I looking for it? It must be outside. Must be something I can see, smell, taste, touch. And then the next project, the next person, the next holiday, we just keep looking. What is spirituality? This same quest for happiness. Stop. Close eyes. Forget this world outside. That is incredibly fascinating. Look inside. Even if you can't see the light just yet. But we've all experienced it, we acclimatize, and then we can see. And then, if we stay there long enough, the light inside's far brighter than the one outside. So then when we open up our eyes after that, we're shining with a different kind of light. And we bring that to the next project, the next relationship, the next holiday, the next event. In my understanding of the journey, this is what I would say is spirituality. And every person's journey. Thank you.
That was really cool. I found it interesting that you go, or you say that we often look outside for happiness. I thought that the analogy with finding what you're looking for is very interesting because you go to somewhere where you can see it because we're so focused on that. But I actually want to ask the audience, anything that you guys want to share, what you associate with spirituality, anything that you want to discuss or ask Swamini? I'll be very eager to hear from you guys and make a bit of a Q&A and to collaborate, to talk together about the topic. Who would like to pick it up?
So I was thinking, my name's Joey. Hello. I was thinking that spirituality actually is almost a journey of like finding yourself in a way, right? So if you kind of find who you are, it's pretty hard to be spiritual, and because you have to look inside. That's my thought. Thank you.
So this term of finding ourselves is an interesting term. We're all exactly the same thing. All of us are happiness and love. There's no one that's anything other than that. Are you going to find yourself other than happiness and love? Finding ourselves usually when we talk about is, certain talents, certain skills, certain sum of experiences that we collect together and our memory that makes me me. Your memory makes you you, but that's a personality. It's still outside. It's what I show the world. This is who I am. This is how I dress. This is my accent. This is where I've been. This is what I've done. It's not who we are. Who are we? No. All of us are the same thing. And so the other thing about spirituality is oneness. So when we look outside, we see the world and there's so much difference. Male, female, just people, right? And there's so much difference between, whatever, ecosystems and objects and colors and shapes and there's difference. But that when we're looking outside, spirituality is finding the oneness in all of us. And there is just that love that's the same. The way I love is the way you love. And then you'll say, no, I hug, you don't hug. But the love's the same, right? And the care and the concern that love brings. And the way it brings out the best in me. When I love, I'm a better person. I do more. I'm more selfless. I'm happy to put in the effort. So if I don't like you and you tell me to do the smallest thing, I'm like, that. But if I love you, I'll travel to the end of the world quite happily for you. So finding ourselves is, yes, spirituality, but it's not a personality. It's essence. Spirituality is about essence. It's not about the details. In my understanding.
So that must be a long, hard journey.
No, you already love. Don't you already love?
I do.
Yeah, how can it be a long, hard journey? We're already there halfway, 3/4 way. Almost there at the threshold.
So is it something that we need to realize? Is there different glasses that we need to put on, a different way to look at the world or ourselves?
Yeah. So my teacher would say that philosophy is giving you a perspective on life, whereas spirituality is giving you an outlook of life. So how I view the world will be how I view myself. If I see myself as a body, chances are I look at you as body. Or if the more I see myself as body, the more I look at you as body. And I see myself as an emotional being, so the roles I connect with, sister, mother. When I look at you, I see yourself. I'll see you as an emotional being. And I see myself as an intellectual being, or a resourceful being, and that's how I look at you. So however I see myself is how I'll see the world. If I see myself as selfish, I see the world as selfish. If I see myself as essence, take away every layer and and what am I in essence, and that's how I'll see the world. I start seeing the world as essence. And the journey here is not that we get rid of anything. The essence includes all the other layers. The essence includes intelligent being, emotional being, physical being. But I don't get stuck at any of those layers of personality. I go deeper into essence. Does that help? Not really.
I think, sorry, Paul, one second. I thought I saw a hand here. Yes, yeah?
Yeah, I was just gonna talk a little bit about my own experience. I'm Dulcia, first time here. I'm from the US, but I've lived in Shanghai and I've lived here and I've traveled all over Southeast Asia and Europe. And to me, like, I don't see I see people as people, and I learn more, and I feel like I'm more spiritual as I meet others. So like, for example, in Mongolia, I went to the Gobi Desert and I stayed with a nomadic family, and they're just out there in the middle of the desert, and all they do is herd sheep all the time, and you wonder, well, gosh, how is this life? You know, like, I live in a big city and I'm an architect and I'm doing all these things, and these people are very happy people and they're living their life. What makes them worse off than me or better, right? And so when you have and you meet people and these different perspectives, you start to think back at yourself and like, what is important? What is happiness? And like, what do I need to be happy? And so from a lot of these different experiences, that's just one of them. I've met different people along my journey, and I start to question, well, what's important to me? Is it those connections? And to me, the connections are most important. And like, what do I get from that? And like, what's beyond the job and the money and like helping others? So to me, helping others and understanding how people do things, that kind of fulfills me more. And I think connects me more to my spiritual self than the day-to-day have making the money to pay the rent and all these other things. So for me, my goal is to like be financial free so I can do those kind of other connections that fulfill me spiritually. I don't know, that's just kind of like what I have to say. Not much, but.
Thank you. I think you start with comparing a completely different lifestyle to yourself, to your own, and kind of reflecting what happiness means to you, and you wonder how could that person be happy. I think that's a lot of reflection of what you yourself, how you
We
experience
use the
the
world as a mirror. Yeah. We use the world as a mirror to see ourselves. Relationships as a mirror to see ourselves. Yeah. Sorry, you had a. Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, I think there's two stories. One which was, I think, me in the days of being able to travel. We used to be in Hong Kong, and Nick and I were in Cambodia, Siam for a short trip. We missed all of the temples, and saw like a Cirque du Soleil human perform circus and those things. But on the flight home to Hong Kong, when there was no quarantine, etc., in the old days, one of the things was there was an American family retired, and they're like, oh my God, these people, like, oh, you're living in Hong Kong, yeah, they're in the US, and like, we've been in Cambodia, my God, the children are so poor, they're so happy, like, they don't have any money, they don't have shoes, yet they seem to be really happy. How can they be happy? They don't have anything. And I remember the lady was quite annoying because she wouldn't stop talking, but at the same time, it's like, well, you have to define happiness, right? Like, if you don't have shoes, you're not going to miss them. And the fact is, it's happiness is what we have. And so seeing the children playing and having a great time and improvising, actually, if you don't have something, you find other ways to be happy. And it's actually about creating your own happiness. And so I think coming back and having that conversation was interesting because she just couldn't understand how people could be happy with so much money and extreme poverty. And she felt happy by giving everyone money, giving everyone dollar bills so that they can be happy.
Buy shoes.
Yeah, like this. The second thing is, I think, happiness, and we have to define happiness. And I think happiness is building blocks, and happiness also comes, in my mind, with maturity. When we're young, we want everything. We want a career, we want a job, we want a salary, we want a perfect relationship, but then we can't have a relationship because we have to have a perfect job. We need to earn a bit more money because the rent's gone up. We want to travel. And I think with time comes maturity, and happiness, we'll never be completely happy because there's always something we want. So as you're saying, close your eyes, use your senses. I think there's a certain thing is to be happy with what you have, and it's the building blocks to continue finding other happiness, whether it's helping others or helping yourself to help others. I just see it's a lot of incremental building blocks to have a happiness. And we'll never be completely happy, but then how do you define completely happy? It's just finding incremental ways to find happiness.
I'm saying we can be completely happy.
I was hoping you say that.
I'm saying we can be completely happy. I'll just let him go first.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for the sharing. I really like what you said that we find our biggest kind of brightest light from the bench. That it's been a lot. I think it's really true for all of us, especially when we're looking outwards. Just thinking like it's like a cup of coffee, right? And then even though it's dark, you never really question outside. It knows it is a good cup of coffee, and then you never question another cup of coffee when you're holding one, right? And you look different. So I really like what you said. Thank you for that. So I work as a consultant, doing a lot of like corporate transformation. So when you walk into an enterprise, I see like big organizations like human beings as well. We're always looking for the next thing and chasing upwards. And I think brands and organization doesn't really look rich enough, just like human beings. So my question for you is, I'm sure you've been mentoring other people, helping other people. What is the biggest stumbling block for people for searching within finding the life? Where is the struggle most of the time we see?
Impatience.
Just like a brand. Just like an organization.
We all can, we all start, we get impatient. It's like when you're trying to quit coffee. I feel like, now what do I hold on to? You get impatient to wait out quitting it so that you can be totally fine without it. Go back forward. So when we stop looking outside for happiness, because we don't yet know how to quite see inside, and we don't find it quickly, we go back outside. And the light that I'm talking about that's inside is a different kind of light. It's not bling light. So even right now, we're completely aware of what we're feeling physically. Or we can be. We can be completely aware of what we're feeling physically. We can be completely aware of the silence in our mind before a thought rises. We can be completely aware of a thought, and we can be completely aware to let go of that thought or to continue thinking that thought. But because we are not proficient in using that awareness, we lose the awareness, and the thought comes before we know the thought's there, and we're already feeling whatever the thought dictates us to feel. So it's developing the ability to stay in awareness, to even notice when a thought comes into our mind. Like, it's definitely a skill which needs to be practiced and practiced and practiced. And so When we get impatient to practice it, we don't get the skill, we don't enjoy the benefit of it. So what I just said very basically in one word is meditating, but we don't have to meditate with eyes closed. And so the light that I'm talking about that's inside is this light of awareness in which every thought is experienced. And so the ultimate journey is to not identify with the thought and be the thought that I'm thinking, but be the awareness, the light in which the thought is seen, is spirituality. Right now, we are our thoughts, which then become our words, our body, our personality. And so we're all different, and we manifest differently. But if I become that consciousness in which the thoughts are experienced, I'm just love. I'm just happiness. I'm exactly the same as everything else on this planet. Or in the universe, not even limited to this planet.
Thank you so much for your talk. I wanted to reflect on the first part of your talk when you spoke about, there are so many beautiful things in the world, and when something on the outside kind of brings happiness to you, but to not depend on it. So my question is around how do you personally, what is your process for, digesting those feelings? And you talked about, being aware of this process is happening. But there are some things like when I hold my son or having a cup of coffee in the morning that do, bring happiness.
Bring happiness,
And
for sure.
For you, when you have those moments, are you like, wait, hold on,
Yeah.
happiness is coming, stop, let's neutralize. So actually, what are those, do you end up having emotions with those outside things, or is it just kind of neutral? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is that process?
Before I answer your question, I just want to say that any subject needs a systematic study to understand it in its entirety and the depth. And what I'm doing now is just doing very wide brushstrokes. Okay, so the difference of living when I hold the phone like this and I hold the phone like this. So when I believe that the phone is giving me happiness, I hold the phone like this because I desperately want happiness. When I know that I am happiness and things in the world will bring me joy and pleasure and delight, I hold it like this. So holding it like this means when it goes, it goes. When it's there, I enjoy it. And so there isn't the elements of fear mixed in with the happiness that I'm going to lose it. Or usually it's fear that gets mixed in. Sometimes jealousy, greed gets mixed in. Like I'm enjoying it and then greed, I want more. Or jealousy that I don't have enough of it. So, but when I hold something, not wanting to possess it, or own it, or control it, I enjoy it more fully and more freely.
We have time for one more.
I would say I have several reflections on what Paul said and Mike, what you said as well, right? It's about, and I mean, what you mentioned as well, in terms of being content, it's really challenging, especially in the current environment, because we are conditioned not to be content. Right? We are conditioned to want more, because otherwise you're not ambitious enough. Otherwise you're not living to your fullest potential. Otherwise, what are you even doing here? There is the condition of doing more, being more, and there is this idea of not being enough. And if there is someone who stands and says, I'm enough, it sounds like pridefulness. It comes across as arrogance. It doesn't come across as happiness. And we don't want to be arrogant. So I think there is also this idea that being humble is to recognize that you're not enough and that there is a need for more, that there is always a place to be better, to get better, to improve. And I think it's really challenging, right? Because content means that, oh, I can stop now. And also I think another reflection point is the fear also comes from this idea that we're missing out, right? But also it goes back to the pace. The pace of life is really fast. And we're not giving ourselves the time to slow down. Because I think spirituality is quiet, calm, and also slow. It takes time.
Not always.
Right? Well, possibly not always, but I have a feeling that there is a certain starting point where you stop and you look back and you try to build awareness, and it takes time. And we're not giving ourselves the time. We are impatient. And so I think that's kind of these two things that are at conflict for me in the current world. The pace is fast, and also this idea that you're more, you can do more. And so how do we marry it? How do we connect it back to spirituality and saying that it's okay to stop and not to be ambitious? How do we do it?
So a few things. We are conditioned. In fact, we're not conditioned in just that one way. We're conditioned in so many ways, starting with thinking with the body and this personality. And that conditioning is the biggest one. And then underneath that conditioning of your body and a personality is all the conditionings of what we should be like. I found that as I have journeyed and grown in my journey, I've done more. And when I stopped trying to do, I did way more. When I was trying to do, I wasn't as effective. And so there are some things that come with experience and time and age, but I think it's the understanding of I'm enough. I'm enough. Doesn't mean I can't be better. So if we think I'm enough means I won't get better, then of course I'm not going to say I'm enough. But then saying I'm not enough is horrible. Because then I'm insecure, and I'm not feeling worthwhile, and I'm feeling so stressed, and I'm feeling so incomplete because I'm not enough. But I'm enough. Helps self-esteem, helps confidence, helps contentment. But even though I'm enough, I can still grow. I can still improve. In fact, I most definitely will, because evolution is inevitable.
We're overrunning a little bit, sorry for that. I have two more things, Swamini. A lot of this is understanding the reality where we're in, with how we're being molded, like the world we live in, and at the same time trying to find your happiness. If you would have to give, if there's one takeaway that the audience needs to go with, maybe a thought, or it could be an experiment, it could be an activity, something that they can actually do, what would that be?
One takeaway. Even if you don't want to, smile. not with just your lips, with your eyes and your heart. Force yourself to smile, because that's who you really